Catastrophizing is when your thoughts spiral into horrible stories, terrible extremes, creating stories that are not true, but then feel true. And these stories with these bad, horrible, terrible, disastrous endings, we completely forget that these are stories, that our brain is writing these stories because we're in it. We're like in the catastrophe. We're not seeing our thoughts as just thoughts. And I'm going to help you with this. So I was a psychotherapist for about 20 years. Many people watching this already know that, but some of you might be new. And I specialized in working with anxiety and trauma. And catastrophizing was one of the biggest anxiety problems that I saw. And I also used to do it myself before I figured out how not to do it. And right up front here, I want to share a concept with you that might be a little bit hard to really take in initially, but listen again if you need to. Your anxiety wants to sustain its own existence. It really does. Why? I don't know. But it is very helpful to think about your anxiety as kind of like something that lives in you that wants to sustain its own existence. And one of the ways it does this is by making up these horrible stories and getting you to believe in them. And one reason it gets you to believe in them is that as you're thinking these stories, your body is responding as if that catastrophic event is actually happening. So there are a few ways to bring yourself back to reality, stop that flood of torturous thoughts, so you can be less anxious and feel better and have a better life, right? That's our goal here. So I saw a couple of questions on one of my prior videos on this topic, and the person said, well, how do I know it's catastrophizing? How do I know it's not real? Well, it's a story, right? Catastrophizing is always a projection into the future. It's not reality. It's a story about what might happen. So how do you know if it's catastrophizing? If you listen to the language you're using, if you think about it as a movie, would there be a different ending? Is it possible that there would be a good ending, or let's say a neutral ending? So if you can look at your thoughts and look at the story, recognize it's a story, and then recognize that there might be other possible endings. This is not, you can't predict the future, right? There's this piece of catastrophizing, particularly when you really believe it. That means you can predict the future, and none of us can do that. None of us can predict the future. So recognizing that you're catastrophizing is definitely one of the first steps. And that question really goes to the fact that your anxiety wants to convince you that this is true. Your anxiety wants you, I don't know why, but it wants you to believe this story, and that's reflected in that question. And I think what I say a little bit later is going to make a little more sense on this point. But anyway, identifying that you're catastrophizing, definitely an important step. So once you've identified that you're catastrophizing, think through, do I always catastrophize about the same things? Or is it sort of anything and everything, right? Are there trigger events that lead to your catastrophizing, or do you simply do it all the time? And these are important questions because if there is a trigger event, it gives you a little bit of a clue about what might have happened to you that made you worry so much about that one thing, right? So for some people, catastrophizing could be around the issue of money. Many people catastrophize around the issue of money. So a bill comes in the door, you forgot about that bill, you see it there in its envelope, you don't even open it, but your mind is already going to the point where you basically are in the poorhouse. Other people catastrophize around health issues, right? So they feel a little ache in one part of their body, and all of a sudden, boom, the mind goes into this entire story, and they are suffering with some horrible disease, and there's probably a very bad ending. So some of us have very specific things that we catastrophize around, and others of us kind of catastrophize around anything and everything. That would be more part of generalized anxiety disorder. But anyway, it is useful to be aware of what you catastrophize about, and then you can also do a little investigation into why. If you worry so much about money, was there something earlier in your life or when you were a kid in particular where there were serious money problems? or money somehow got involved in something that made you very anxious as a kid, right? That's a little bit of the sleuthing that can actually begin to help us separate the past from what's happening now and then the future, right? Because catastrophizing is about getting confused between the future and now. Because we catastrophize, we think it's actually happening. We have adrenaline, cortisol going in our body. We're all upset. We are convinced it's going to happen. We're forgetting about the present. And then our emotional brain and the more primitive parts of our brain kind of get stuck in the past. So if when we were little, we were powerless and something happened around the issue of money today might make us feel powerless just automatically. And we have to begin to separate, okay, that was an appropriate reaction then, and it's a reaction that makes sense now. I don't want to imply that it isn't appropriate, right? I don't want to imply that at all. But it isn't helpful, and it also isn't true. You're no longer powerless. So when we get stuck either with these automatic reactions in the past or these automatic fantasies, really, of the future, we're ignoring what's actually happening. We're ignoring what we can actually do about a problem. So I want to address right here pushback that I sometimes get when I talk about these CBT techniques to help you live a better life, right? I get pushback that, but my problem is real. And then I also get comments from people that they had a CBT therapist who minimized their problems, and nobody should minimize your problems. And CBT techniques are not about minimizing problems at all. Truly, truly, they're not. Many problems are very real. In fact, human existence can be just filled with real problems. So CBT techniques are more about, given I have these problems, how can I best handle them? So there's nothing in here that minimizes what you're facing. So let's take a real example here. Let's say your job isn't going well. You are barely paying your bills. Okay. No, this is a situation common to many people. Your car is old. You have to get to work. Your boss doesn't really like you. And you know you're a little bit on a tightrope. And you live in an area where it's hard to get another job. Okay. Those are real problems. So your car breaks down. You're heading to work. Your car breaks down. You're going to be late. This 100% is a problem. However, it's a problem that needs practical steps to address it, right? If you jump right into catastrophizing, which would be, I will lose my job. I'm going to get fired today. I won't be able to pay my rent. I'm going to be homeless. I will never recover. You go into an entire loop of catastrophic thinking. My partner will leave me because I lose my job. This will happen, that will happen. Basically, I'm in the gutter, okay? That's not helping you focus on what you need to do. When our brains get super anxious, right, and all that adrenaline kicks in. Now, adrenaline helps us run away from a saber-toothed tiger. It doesn't help us think creatively. Adrenaline makes you hyper-focus, right, which again can be helpful for avoiding an accident or things you really need to super focus on, right? But a problem like I'm describing, that's complex. There's some complexity there. That's going to take some thinking and planning. And when we are in a more relaxed state, which I understand is hard if you are in a situation like that, I don't in any way mean to imply any of this is easy, right? But this could be helpful. The more you can diaphragmatically breathe, sort of bring your anxiety level down. Okay, my car broke down. First step. What's the first step? Call the tow truck, try to fix it yourself, call a friend, whatever the first step is going to be, you do the first step. And then when your brain is in a calmer state and the whole brain can think things through, that's when you're going to have some creative thinking come up. That's when you're going to be able to access solutions. So going down the catastrophizing path might make you avoid calling your boss because he's going to fire you. I don't want to call him. He's going to fire me. Well, that's probably a good way to ensure you'll get fired, right? Not picking up the phone because your anxiety is going to make you avoid. And then your anxiety is going to keep you up at night. You won't be able to sleep. You're not thinking as well if you don't sleep. So the catastrophizing and the anxiety around real problems, right? Those things make everything worse. Breaking it into, what do I need to do this minute? What do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week and maybe this month to solve these problems, to get myself on a better path? What can I put in place? So I kind of call it like productive worry versus unproductive worry. Unproductive worry is just spiraling into the catastrophic thinking, really letting your anxiety take over. That anxiety that I said wants to exist, it also just wants to rule you. So letting that take over is going to make it worse and worse and worse down a rabbit hole. Productive worry helps you really outline, all right, these are the steps I'm going to need to take. I need to call the office. I need to apologize. I need to suggest to my boss that I'm coming up with a plan to solve the car problem, right? So what does your boss want? Your boss wants you there, wants you to have reliable transportation. That's not always easy, right? But to sort of begin to think through, what can I do even if I can't solve this problem this month, maybe within a year? Maybe within a year I can solve the problem, and I have to do it step by step. So when you recognize that you're catastrophizing, label it, put a label on that thinking. The more you can look at your thoughts and label them, the more separation you will create between your made up reality, right? Like your body experiencing all this panic, and the reality of what's actually happening. So you want to label it, this is catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is a cognitive distortion. That means it's distorted. That means it's not true. Put distance between yourself and your thoughts and begin to express what you're seeing in terms of the pattern. Express it to yourself, to a friend, to a therapist, whoever you want to, but mainly to yourself. There I go again. There I go again into like the worst possible outcome here. Can I change this story? Can I come up with a good ending? Can I come up with a neutral ending? How do I change the story? How many endings can I think of here? And changing our thinking is not always easy to do directly, right? Like all of the sort of common social media advice of like, oh, change how you think. It's not always that easy because we have to combine it with behaviors. And if you find yourself catastrophizing, my recommendation is to bring in a behavior that will calm you physiologically. So what might that be? Petting an animal. Really well researched if you like animals, obviously. But when we pet an animal, our heart rate drops. It actually drops. And the animal's heart rate drops. A lot of this we do instinctually. We're not thinking about it, right? If you love babies and you're holding a baby, you will naturally lower your heart rate, lower your voice. You will speak in more soothing tones, and it's calming to you and the baby. So that type of thing is great. If you don't have something like that, no problem. Take a walk in the park. Focus on listening to natural sounds. That can also be something that really can bring our physiological reactions down. If you can go to a place where you hear birds sing, that'd be great. Listen to calming music. Music changes our physiological state. And of course, there's always one of my favorites, deep breathing, deep diaphragmatic breathing. But combining those kind of behavioral changes, because that helps your physiology, is going to help you separate from the thought. Do both at once. Don't pick one and then the other. Do both at once if you can. And if you can't, I probably would focus on the physiologically calming behaviors as actually being almost the most important. And then these things take time. It takes time to create that separation from your thoughts, but we don't have to believe all of our thoughts. In fact, most of our thoughts are not true, right? Truth is kind of a funky concept because it's often relative, but many of our thoughts are actually not true at all. And knowing that you can either be in your thoughts, like totally lost in your thoughts as if they're your reality, or you can have some distance from them, or you can see them, question them, and not believe all of them. So a free resource I have for you is I have a webinar called Rewiring Your Brain for Joy and Confidence. And it's really about how we can use a combination of seeing our thoughts differently and behaviors to begin to rewire how our brains work. Because if we catastrophize, the neurons that fire together, wire together, right? There's actually a myelination process that creates superhighways in our brain, connecting different things, connecting a whatever. Bill comes across your desk, boom, you're catastrophizing. That's connected by a myelinated superhighway in your brain. So figuring out how to do these things so you can actually implement today practices that are going to help your brain. So I think that webinar could be super helpful for you. I'll put the link here and then also put the link in the description to this video. And stay tuned. I will be releasing more videos that will help on this topic as well as other relevant topics. And if you liked this video, please do give me a like. Very motivating for me, and subscribe to my channel. All right, take care. I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next week.